Block.
Welcome to the Round Block podcast, where we like to talk to people instead of about them.
Slow as it goes.
On the mic, we got Young Luck, aka Moose Knuckle,
Moose Knuckle,
aka Knuckle Fat. He is, he's a fellow artist. I met him during my stay in Oregon. So he's a incarcerated brother. 022, let's go. But usually people bring me alcohol, but he brought me water. So stoked. What kind of water is this?
This is like, I'm not even being dramatic, and I'm known to be dramatic. This is the best water in the world. The goal was at first to just get plastic bottles off of the streets because, they're fucking terrible. What you have a ton of tourists that come and, they realize that Hawaii is really hot, and so they go to KTA, they buy these plastic bottles of water, and they just leave this shit everywhere. So there are a couple things that we had to do. One, we had to beat them on quality and price. The quality side, like Hilo already has some of the best water in the world. So, just straight out of the tap, you're getting better water than anything that you can probably buy on the shelves right now. So we took that and we started running it through these processes. One is the Kangen. Everybody knows the ionization was to cleanse your body and do some magical things for you. And so we got that too. But then we stumbled upon this other process. And this other process, it infuses the water with hydrogen. Like athletes have been using this stuff for a couple of years, and the way that it regenerates your body, it's as close to actual divine water as you can get. And it's right off of this small little corner in Hilo.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not really I haven't been a water guy. I think this could be the thing to, not just because we're friends, but it could make me drink more water. Because I know that it's something I got to work on it.
Yeah.
But it's refreshing. It's pretty cool.
Like no bullshit, is the best water in the world.
It's definitely worth a try. And if you go to your spot, the watering hole, Hilo Holy Water.
Yeah.
You give it for free or also?
So getting back to the tiers, we had to beat them on quality, and we did that. But then we had to beat them on price. And the way that we beat them on price is we offer these glass bottles, and you can get them for $10, but they come with 5 free refills. After that 5th refill, it's cheaper than Dasani. So, so we beat them on quality, we beat them on price, and we nail our objective of pulling plastic off of the streets. And this is, it's not to market yet, so there's no telling whether it's a success or not, but we've kind of hit the 3 pillars that we need to hit in order for it to reach it. So.
Yeah, that was real interesting too, because, I have a business too, so I'm always wondering, like, shit, how's it going to make money? How's it going to make money? You have overhead to pay for, and I like your approach to it. Most people think they do things to make money. Your thing was to do something, to put out a product that has value within the community, and hopefully it'll catch on. And I like the fact that, you weren't really charging for the water, you were charging for the bottles. And, if somebody brought in their bottle, you were just like, oh yeah, try it, fill it up, try it. Let me know if you like it. And you kind of take it from there and that.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, 20 years ago, I would have said, that's fucking stupid. But I remember Twitter. Twitter was called a failing business because they didn't know how to generate revenue for Twitter for, was it the first 4 years? You're a tech guy, bro.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just that. It's like before Starbucks, the idea of having a coffee shop on every corner of the world, like that was ridiculous. The idea of that was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And so the way that they solved that was with the equipment. And so with this system that we kind of designed is there's no reason why this couldn't be replicated at scale. There's no reason why this couldn't be put up anywhere if the system was there. But I think that it has to be absolutely noted. I'm not trying to make money off of this shit. This is not I'm not trying to profit off of the water out here. It's more so the mission was to pull the plastic off of the streets. But I'm not here to get rich off of the water. I'm just here to, kind of provide an alternative that kind of sticks a foot in Nestle's ass. Like that's the mission. It's
I just nailed almost half this bottle. I normally never do that.
It's really good water.
Okay, so there's this whole division right now with everybody, and the division is, vax or unvaxxed, so, and how if you're vaxxed, you're against unvaxxed, or vice versa. And I thought that was just ridiculous. So Lucky's one of my best friends out here. He's vaccinated.
Fully.
After he got the vaccination, I tried to stick the metal on him. It didn't work.
I was so bummed. Bro, I was so bummed that I didn't become a zombie. You have no idea. Can you imagine just all your purposes just to eat brains all day?
So, I'm unvaxxed. Lucky's vaccinated. That's the thing, man. You can have different ideals and different concerns and still be fucking friends.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we have to hate each other and we're fucking mortal enemies.
Yeah, no, I think one of the tragedies of all of this is this idea of you're on your team, I'm on my team. Everything that my team says is right and everything that your team says is wrong.
Definitely.
And even if your team fucking sucks, you're going to ride so hard for that team because it's your team. And that's a dangerous place to exist if we all exist together, right? As a society, as a community. We can't even find common ground with other people to have a conversation. So, that fucking sucks because there's a lot of important stuff to conversate about right now.
The interesting thing is, Lucky came with me to the Capitol to stand on behalf of the freedom of choice and body autonomy and, the whole subject. Even though he's vaccinated, he still stood with us. And I think that's a very important aspect that we always got to keep in mind. Just because, a person got vaccinated, he'll still stand with us. And that's what we need right now. And it's going to be interesting to hear his side of the story and why, even though he's vaccinated, why he still stood with us.
Yeah, no, I kind of break it down into two things, right? You have the vaccination issue, and then you have this autonomy issue. Those are two separate issues. I have been pro-choice all of my life. I think that what you put inside of your body and what you take out of your body, like how can I support a woman's right to choose whether to get an abortion or not, which I stand by fully. Like that's her body. Do what the fuck you want. It wasn't that I was just standing with you. I was standing with me. Like that's what I believe.
They've kind of, they compared it to medical rape because they're putting they said
that's valid. Like that's the point that I like. The idea of somebody putting anything inside of you without your consent or that you're not 100% comfortable with, it's off the table. Like that ends the conversation. Like no, we're not gonna allow that because if you give a fucking mouse a cookie, if you give a politician a civil liberty, all they're gonna do is keep asking for them. And that's the way that this shit works. And I fully am 100% in agreement with you on that shit. This is one that we all should be fighting against. Like, and it doesn't matter whether or not you think it's going to slow down this pandemic, but I still don't think that should come at the cost of the government being able to tell you what you should and shouldn't do with your body. And my stance stands the same for all of this. Like, your body is your body. There's that. And then there's the vax. And the vax, this is how I look at it. Like, everything follows a logic train, right? Like, give me 3 minutes to explain the logic behind why this vax was so easy for me to choose, right? So,
I'll answer that anyway.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. This is how I look at it. The people giving guidance to get this vax, right? It's the CDC. So the CDC is not telling us what to do. The government is going to them and asking for guidance. So the CDC is this federal agency, right? They get $67 billion a year to do absolutely nothing but study viruses and biological things that could pose a threat. Now, to get into the CDC, let's break that down. To get a PhD in molecular biology, right? You have to go through 6 years, 4 to 6 years of school after your regular university to get that PhD. So of the people that try and get that PhD in molecular biology, only 42% actually make it through, right? Of that 42% that make it through those 6 years, only 24% of that actually make it to the CDC to be able to study these diseases. Now, that's a decade's worth of study. And to do all of that and get hired by the CDC, you end up at a $47,000 a year salary.
Okay, so that's my thing too.
Yeah.
At $47,000, which is not much.
It's nothing. So hold on. Let me finish this train of logic. In order to go through all of that, to get to that at the end of the rainbow, you have to really fucking love molecular biology. And I don't love molecular biology that much. I can guarantee Candace Owens doesn't love molecular biology that much. And so you have these people pop up on YouTube or to come with the conspiracy. Like, the first thing I have to ask is, well, how many cultures have you studied? Like, how many cultures do you have inside of your refrigerator? Because these fuckers just study it. They have a fucking deep freeze in Atlanta the size of a Aloha bowl that's filled with samples for these people who love this science to study.
Okay.
And so in these areas where I don't know, I'm going to kind of lean towards the people that have studied it, one, but also when you got arrested, bro, you didn't call a plumber for advice, right? You called a fucking lawyer because they studied law. So I'm going to have a hard time trusting this video I saw on YouTube versus somebody who has dedicated their life to understanding how these things work.
Okay.
So that's my train of logic on where I'm at with the vaccine.
Here's me accepting what you said. Also saying, at one point, at a certain time in history, we got all of our information through media, through mainstream media, just 5 or 6 main media channels. So anything that they put out, we accepted as truth and we believed blindly. But with the internet, we're allowed to, do our own independent research and come up with, things they aren't publishing.
Yeah, for all of the skepticism, like the righteous skepticism, it's good to be skeptical about the media and the stuff that they try and put in our heads. You also have to apply that the other way as well, right? Yeah, they're filling us with misinformation. We have access to the internet that has all of this other information that we're not seeing on the media, but you have to, it's like a double-edged sword, you know what I mean? There's no vetting process to the stuff that we're finding on other than us, and I personally haven't spent any time studying on the best way to vet information. You know what I mean? Like, I've gone through I have no press clearance to be able to call you. It's going through no other process other than our own. And so that information, and it's even crazier because we are looking, whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we're doing it subliminally, we are looking for information that validates what our current position is. It takes a very, very strong soul to say, I'm going to go look for information that counters the shit that I believe is true right now. That takes us,
you have somebody that's paid only $47,000 a year, and they start to live a lifestyle that's beyond that. There's where the waters get muddy. It's because now they're very susceptible to corruption and payouts, and because, dude, I make way more money than that, but I still couldn't back something out that I don't believe in.
Sure.
So with the studies that are being done, there's so much studies being done right now. You could find a study that supports your ideals, and I could find a study that supports my ideals.
Sure.
I think that's the divide. We are specifically looking for studies that
that validate us easily. If there's a study that and this is where we get into this dangerous part where it is very hard for the general public, someone in the general public who has decided this is the battle they're going to die on, to admit, I am wrong. And so any piece of evidence that comes out that supports them not being wrong, they're quick to jump to. And none of us are susceptible to that. You've done it, I've done it plenty of times. And so the one thing that, if we are going to make it through this, the one thing that I encourage everybody, and not just about the vaccine, about everything, look at the source. You have to go to the source. And you are absolutely right. Social media has made it to the point where we can collectively get together and research something, right? There is no amount of research that you and I, working around the clock, could do to match the level of research that's being done by these people who have dedicated their life to. So I could study for the next 5 years, nothing but this, and still not have done enough research to get my degree in the field where I would be considered. So for me to presume that, I would know more than them is the guidance that they're getting from the CDC. This is the information we have right now. This is the guidance we're giving based on that information. As we learn new things, that guidance is going to change because we've learned new things. And when you put that up against this block of our society right now, who, one, doesn't want to be wrong, two, is unwilling to accept any information coming from the other side, and I'm not talking about, the right wing, I'm talking about left wingers, right wingers, everybody in this fight right now. It's gotten so fucking ridiculous that we can't have a a communication where either side is willing to say, okay, this is what's best for both of us to move on. It's us or them. Like, how many people do you think are out there that take joy in seeing Biden fail or Trump fail? That's a dangerous place to be if we're going to live in the same place together.
Well, they're running the country.
Yeah.
Why would you want them to fail? Because we live in that country.
Exactly.
So if they fail, we fail.
Exactly.
But then the thing right now is, I feel like we're failing.
That's fair.
Kind of like what you said about these molecular biologists.
Yeah.
They work for somebody, so that somebody is guaranteed making a lot more money than they're making. And so how do we know that it's not getting filtered and they're not giving out data that supports their side for this? The thing, I just remember being up at Mauna Kea, and I remember the lies the government, and the fake state were saying about everybody up there. Oh, they're just these, Hawaiians that are up there to party, and every lie that they had was, they'd get together. I remember this in the morning times. They'd get together, go in their tents, and they have like little community meetings and say, you know what, Ige is saying that, we're killing I can't remember the bird's name because of our traffic lights, and it's confusing the birds and throwing them off, and they can't nest correctly and hitting the ground. And then, well, there is a military base 1 mile away that has lights on, far brighter than what we have over here. They're always spinning the narrative to make us look bad. Mm-hmm. And nobody was saying, objectively saying, well, what about Pakuloa? The lights over there are way brighter, but why are they focusing on us? So it's that focal point and choosing where they want to aim and who they want to attack. That's always been my problem. So I always feel like,
That's fair.
we're getting bullied, and not like, and the thing about that too is like most everybody on the unvax side they have a cool attitude on, oh, you're vaccinated, cool, that's your choice, I accept that. And it just felt like, everybody from the vaccinated side, they felt empowered. They felt like, like vax entitlement, dude. This weird, hey, stay away from me. I don't want your kids playing with my kids. Well, why don't you want my kids playing with your kids? Because your kids are vaccinated? Well, your kids can still spread this coronavirus thing. And, then we can get into the details on how deadly it is. But the bottom line, it comes back to, a choice, and it does come back to body autonomy.
There are people who do get taken out by the flu. They do have conditions that take them out of the game. Like we're lucky enough to be able to make enough money to where we can vacation now if we wanted to. Not everybody is like that. So you have somebody that holds down a 9 to 5 and they have kids. A kid getting sick puts a serious dent in already, in a situation that's already hard to make it through. And so, there's going to be a lot of emotion tied to them getting vaccinated because it thinks that they'll be able to stay at work, and somebody that's not getting vaccinated for whatever reason. They have every single right not to get vaccinated based on what they believe should go in their body. But there is always going to be that if there is a chance that you're going to get me sick, if there's something openly available on the market that could help you at least not knock us out, I'm going to take a little bit of issue with that. And for whatever's going on in their life, that could be really emotional for them. That could spark a lot of anger. That could, like we are in a position of privilege. Yeah. You and I and even Jay, like we are in a position of privilege to where, we could take a month off of work if we wanted to and we still be cool. Not everybody is like a majority of Americans are not there.
In fact, I had a conversation with, I knew this guy since high school. We were B-boys. We used to do graffiti together too. And I haven't talked to him for fucking decades.
Yeah.
And then he was like, hey, I think what you're doing is you're spreading misinformation. And I think that's a real bad thing you're doing, Keone. And right there I was just like, wait, I'm not really spreading, I have an opinion, I have a way I feel, but I'm definitely not spreading misinformation. Everything I fact check myself. When people send me, links and stuff, I do the same thing. I fact check them too, yeah? And, I've had nurses send me stuff, and I'm always worried about agent provocateurs and stuff. So I would ask them, send me a selfie of you and your scrubs, and then they'd send it and I'd be like, okay. So, So a hospital, Hilo Hospital, their COVID unit has 24 beds. 24 beds is not a lot of beds. And when you think of a Hawaiian household, about 6, 7 people live there. That takes up a third of the bed space already.
Yeah.
So if in my household we started coughing or somebody felt sick or had the fever, we'd all, because of what they're saying, they're using these cases, and that's the part of the fear mongering that I said, man, this needs to stop. Worrying about cases needs to stop. We have to look at the death counts, because that's what people are afraid of. It's the mortality rate. And like the Spanish flu, that was a real fucking banger. That was a real flu. That was a real pandemic. But during a real pandemic, I've used this example, this explanation before too, is we had, we know the same homeless people because we both have galleries here in downtown. Yeah. We see them every single day. We've seen them the last 18 months. Every single day. They do not practice social distancing. They eat food out of the rubbish cans that other people have eaten. They're not vaccinated. They don't wear face masks. They don't do any of the protocols that we're supposed to do in order to stay safe and healthy. So for me, that was it was one of those red flag moments where like, wait, they're not following any of the guidelines, any of the protocols, and I'm not gonna say they're fine because they're still like homeless on the street, but
they are the original, the outbreak monkeys.
They cooked the back soup, but I don't want it to happen, and I would never want to be correct about this, but I would think that they would be the first demographic to get hit and to die and to go, right, and so that's one of those things that and going back to the death count between 2017 and 2020. So now, and I was in this argument too earlier, when I said, okay, well, why isn't there a spike in death tolls? And somebody's argument, well, there's less people on the road. And this was during the lockdown. This was early on when I brought this argument. So there's less car accidents. And I was just thinking, okay, that honestly, that might play into why there's a lower death count, but there's still a lower death count during a deadly pandemic than there was, when there wasn't one. So when it, before it even existed, we had higher death rates. Now, if this thing was as deadly as the mainstream media portrayed it to be, sure, then it would be far higher. You know what I mean? The percentage would be, there has to be a spike in deaths. And there's not a spike in deaths. There's a spike in COVID death cases, but when the COVID death cases rose, many of us looked on the CDC website and watched influenza drop off. Right. And not to count the 500% increase in suicides.
Sure. So yeah, all of that is very valid. The homeless population in Hilo is actually thriving. But a lot that has been put in the media has been, leaned on the mortality and how deadly this thing is. It can be deadly under the right circumstances, but it's very unlikely that anybody in this room is going to die from COVID-19, even if we caught the worst case of it. Like, we are going to survive. And so I think that placing such a high value on that word death, as far as how impactful this thing actually is wrong. Like, it's not that it's going to kill us, it's that it's going to knock us out. And if it does that en masse, you're going to see what you saw, where just the entire economy just fucking stops. And at the end of the buck will always stop at the buck, right? It will always be about money, whether that is, who's making money, who's able to generate money. And that is kind of why it hit us the way that it did, is that you saw entire blocks of the community get so sick, not die, just get so sick that the ICU, and it's important to make that distinction, the ICU versus the actual general population of a hospital. How many ICU beds are available, the percentage, and I know that those numbers can be skewed based on how you research and all of that, but we spend almost a third of our budget on healthcare. That's a third of our budget is on healthcare. If that collapses, the economy will likely collapse past the point of recovery in our lifetime. It'll probably take 50 years to get back to a point where, and this is not fear mongering. This is like, if you lose a third of your income, you're going to make drastic changes, right? Like if a third of your bank just automatically disappears. The minute that the hospitals pass that point of capacity where they have to decide who gets treated and who doesn't, that healthcare system has failed. If we don't have any beds, right? And there were many hospitals, which is why they shut us down. There were hospitals that had reached capacity in Los Angeles, maybe not here in Hawaii, but in Los Angeles and where I was.
Also.
Huh?
New York also.
Yeah, so there were hospitals that had to actively make the decision, no, I'm taking their grandmother, not yours. That's not.
Okay. I understand that part.
Whether they died or not, it has nothing to do with death. But I agree with that it was very, very wrong and probably detrimental to the cause of us together beating this thing, was to place the emphasis on death.
Yeah.
It's just
classify who dies.
Yeah, and it's not very sexy to say, oh yeah, they got really, really sick and then got better. That's not sexy. That doesn't sell papers. You have pictures of people dying by their, loved ones, but that sells papers. That sells media.
I always just feel like, we've been around this long. We will naturally build our immunities and we can get to that, your position where you're at, you're 3% higher, in a natural way. And my problem is where, where I, kind of, start going hard towards, this whole movement, is the fact that it's a money-making thing.
For sure.
And now they're doing these, not you're not making any money off the vaccine.
Yeah, fuck.
Okay, well, we're gonna do it naturally, but if we accept if we accept the government's narrative right now, they're gonna hold us, basically they're gonna hold us hostage to accept everything else that comes after that. So a booster shot every 2 months, or you can't eat in a restaurant.
Sure.
So this thing has become, it's our generation, in my opinion, it's our generation's civil rights movement. So now it's turning into something where I feel the government's overreaching.
Right. Where does that end when other people's health are involved? So I think that there are valid arguments on both sides of the vaccine issue, but with that one issue where the government has a right whether to tell you to get in it, there shouldn't be a side. There should not be any sides to that. Like, if we're going to allow that, then you have to be okay down the line with them putting whatever the fuck they want inside of your body. And I'm not okay with that. And I'll stand with these, people that I think...
Why might want to sniff your daughter's hair? He might want to put his little pee-pee in your daughter, dude. Pass a bill.
Fuck.
Dude, Trump is a hornball, dude. You better lock your wife up.
Grab him by the pussy.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's where I stand on the whole vaccine issue. At the end of the day, I think that I am more inclined to go with the folks that have made this their life to study. They are experts in this field, and they've gone through the hula hoops to become an expert in this field. And if I want advice on what I should do, I'm probably going to go with what they say over,
look towards that. That's the direction you look first.
Yeah. So that's where I stand with the vaccine and this whole idea of making these things where you can't live your life if you don't get one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. We've been on this talk for. Thank you for coming through. And
it's part one.
Any shout outs you want to do or?
I give a shout out to everybody who's able to keep an open mind through all of this. Shout out to everybody who is still able to love the people that they would have otherwise loved outside of this debate. It's really important that we are the folks that survive this.
Yeah. Okay. Since Kyle Douglas is working on Love Island.
Oh shit! Did he make it to the next round, Kyle?
He won the girl.
Yeah.
Round block.